I'm Chris Bussing. Welcome to my channel. It's committed to helping more people create a life of freedom and impact through success in tech sales and the pursuit of self-development. We've got a great guest today, JD Wagnon, who did what we all want to do. He broke into tech sales with no tech experience at a top company, a top global CRM, Hubspot. He went from selling cosmetics at L'Oreal to selling CRMs. It's got a nice ring to it, cosmetics to CRMs. And we're going to dig into his journey breaking into tech sales so that we can extract as much value as possible so you can do the same yourself. If you guys get value out of the video, of course, give the like button a love tap because the YouTube algorithm loves that too. And we'll show this video to more people who could benefit from the message. And guys, let's just dive into it. JD, how's your day been? Thanks for joining.
Yeah, it's been good, Chris. Thanks for organizing this. I was on the other side watching your videos in my job search quite a few months ago when I reached out. So I'm very happy to now be on the other side. So having made it through the gauntlet, I definitely am eagerly looking forward to helping other people do the same.
It's so cool to connect with you. We messaged on LinkedIn and so proud of you and what you've done. And you're just getting started. And before we know it, you'll be on the other side of the podcast, having people on yourself, putting out your own content. So here to cheer you on. And let's dig into the gauntlet. Let's dig into what your job hunt was like, your interview process, so that we can help more folks do the same. But before digging into that, what's a day in the life like at HubSpot? And let's take it with a grain of salt because you haven't gone live yet, right? Do you go live on Monday?
That's true. I go live on Monday. So lately what it's been a very structured, organized onboarding program where we went through the fundamentals of the business itself, then the fundamentals of the role. And one of the really cool things about the training program has been the level of autonomy that they give us. There are so many different resources that we get, and then we are tasked with creating a process that we're able to put in place every day that works for us. No two reps in sales are going to have the exact same process. And we basically create it to amplify our capabilities, our strengths, and be able to essentially press the gas every day so that we can consistently meet our metrics and drive results for the company.
So can you tell us a little bit about the type of plan that you're building? Like, give us a look under the hood.
Yeah, so I actually got a shared document this morning, so I haven't gotten to implement it yet. But with HubSpot itself being a CRM product, predominantly what we're selling to is we're helping businesses that are SMBs and mid-market companies all the way up to the enterprise level. And so we every day are looking through at our target companies, identifying good fit contacts to reach out to, pulling them into our capacity, and then making sure that we're nurturing and qualifying those prospects and getting them high quality conversation on the books with HubSpot so that we can dig into any sort of challenges or goals that they have and see how we can align.
And so how do you feel about go live on Monday? Do you have any butterflies? Do you feel like I'm going to crush it, which I know you will, but where are you at? How are you feeling?
I definitely, I know that I'm going to figure it out. I'm someone who's pretty intellectually curious. So I probably have like 30 or 50 questions brewing in the back of my head, but I know that as I go through things, I'm someone who's a visual learner. And so as I do it, then everything will kind of like come together and the full picture will be apparent, and I'm sure it'll be smooth sailing.
So what you have, which is really the key to success, is self-belief. And confidence to me is just telling oneself, I can figure it out. I can handle the ambiguity. And of course, in sales and entrepreneurship, we deal with ambiguity. So I love that mindset. And you understand you have a growth mindset. You have the capacity to learn and you're curious. And it's funny, when I started at Oracle, they called me Question Boy. And when I say they, there was a guy, Brad Mank, shout out to Brad Mank. He's still in tech sales somewhere out in the LinkedIn sea. You could find him. And he called me Question Boy, which was kind of like just poking fun at me, but I pride myself in being curious. And I'm curious, pun intended, were you able to show your curiosity in the interview process? Was that something that you focused on demonstrating?
Yeah, definitely. I think that when, 110%. I think that for me, I'm somebody who loves to learn just in my personal life, in my professional life. If you're not growing, you're dying. And so how
Hmm.
that shows up in the interview process for me is that I tried to gather as much data as possible about the company itself. So I went to repview.com, which is a very reputable website that ranks the top sales organizations. And I consistently saw that HubSpot was ranked highly internally by sales professionals. So I knew that that would be a great environment for me to learn and grow. Double clicking into that, I know that they like to promote very quickly. They also have a great culture of transparency as well. So it takes the subjectivity of moving up through the ranks or the politics out of it. So if you meet the metrics, you're moving on to the next level, which was something that was really important to me, especially coming from an industry that medical sales that kind of felt a little bit outdated when you compare it to something like technology. So I knew that that was an area that I really wanted to dive into. And I forgot your initial question, so I'll
No, it
let you.
was great. Like you showed curiosity, and I think curiosity, also is indicated by your ability to, hit different topics and venture into even like different tangents. It's like we're exploring different pathways that the conversation could go down. And I don't know, that sounds funny to say, but I'm the same way. And so you answered my question. You showed your curiosity in the interview process, and you started to show us what attracted you to HubSpot. It sounds like transparency. It's a meritocracy. If you perform well, you'll get promoted. And you kind of hit on why you were attracted to the tech industry, because you did really well at L'Oreal, right? Weren't you crushing it?
Yeah, I was doing well at L'Oreal. And I think also, too, being in a company that's headquartered across the country. I was on the West Coast here, and our headquarters was in New York. And the only way to really keep moving up the corporate chain would have been having to uproot myself and move to New York, which just wasn't on the table for me because I like my West Coast lifestyle. I like having the beach. I like hikes. I'm an outdoorsy person. And so I would have had to sacrifice that. And so that's one of the reasons that kind of drew me to tech, is because there's a lot of remote options. And for me, that quality of life aspect, being able to grow professionally and personally, but also get to see my family, get to do the thing I love, travel, was a huge value add to me that was worth maybe a little bit of the temporary step back that I took in title, which I know will ultimately be a worthwhile step to take.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that humility goes a long way, especially when you're making a change into a different industry. And when it comes to lowering the barrier to entry to a top company like HubSpot, I feel like you're really playing chess rather than checkers. Like, it's very strategic to go to a top, company. And didn't you have an offer from a startup as well? Like, what was your thinking on joining a big, well-recognized global brand versus a startup?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would have seen benefits either way. Couldn't have gone wrong. Both were really great options on the table. Ultimately, when I was looking, I had an offer for a startup that was 2 titles higher. It was higher than the position that I left. But because I didn't have that solid base in tech, I thought that kind of grittiness and persistence is a skill that really helps kind of mold the top sales individuals. And I figured, even if I start off in a BDR role, that ultimately the outbound is really the core proficiency of any really good salesperson. And being able to master that, I think, would set me up for long-term success. So that's kind of what drew me over to HubSpot. And I know that they also have an incredible training program as well. And
Yes.
so while going to a tech startup, you get to wear so many different hats. There's a lot of opportunity there, but it's also susceptible to a lot more market volatility. There's a lot of you kind of figuring everything out yourself, which can be a good thing. But I've often found that success exists in collaboration, not isolation.
Mm.
And so if you have smarter people in the room and more of them that you can learn from, then that's going to accelerate your learning curve. So that was kind of what was going through my head when I was weighing the options. And ultimately, when everything kind of weighted together, HubSpot was a more alluring option.
I like that you recognize the power of learning how to prospect and you're not trying to overstep the fundamentals, because the best AEs know how to prospect. And, like I'm at a startup now as the second founding US seller in a global company. We're a late stage startup, and I prospect all the time. And I just set a meeting. I found out today a customer got back from an email I sent yesterday, and it felt great. And I'm still doing it. And it's a $38 billion grocery chain, actually. And I think that's what differentiates the top AEs and also even executives. Or if you're going to found a company one day, which I could totally see you doing, I don't know if you actually want to do that. You're going to have to win your first clients. And I talk to founders who they're prospecting, before they even have a sales team. Which, by the way, like what's your, I was going to say this for the end, but what is your vision longer term? Are you using tech sales as a path to entrepreneurship, or do you want to become like a build your own brand? What do you want? Where do you want to go eventually?
Yeah, that's a great question. And thank you. In the back of my head, I've always had an intellectual curiosity when it comes to D2C brands. I really like, I know sales is like kind of one-to-one communication, but marketing is one-to-many. And I really like the skill sets of wordsmithing, of being able to influence people, to talk to their pain points, challenges, and ultimately help people, which I think is what any good business does. And so I want to be like an 8 or 9 figure D2C brand owner. And I'd love to launch something that's on Amazon, Shopify, and TikTok Shop that uses kind of the most attractive medium in marketing, which is video marketing. And kind of that's where I'd like to go, honestly.
I can't wait till one day we look back at this video when you proclaim your vision and it became a reality. You literally convert your dream into reality. I know you're going to do it. And everything you're doing in tech sales right now is giving you the skill set, the income, and the connections that will support that vision. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. And shout out to some of the folks who've joined live. Thanks for being here on a Friday. Des, she says, great vision for yourself, JD. You got another supporter. And I do believe that there is such power when you proclaim a vision. It comes alive in the listening of other people, and they see you for what's possible. They see you for that vision, and other people will step up to help. So one thing I'd tell you and anyone out there in the audience is keep sharing, keep sharing that vision with everyone you meet. But okay, cool. Let's get into your journey breaking in. You're at L'Oreal, you're doing well, but you see an opportunity in tech sales that intrigues you. And from the point of deciding that you wanted to get into tech sales to landing your job at HubSpot, how long was that? Because a lot of folks have different expectations. They see people get a job in 2 weeks. Some take 2 years in 2 weeks. How long did it take you?
I was definitely more of the latter. I didn't have a strict, and clear vision of exactly what I wanted to target. I knew that I wanted to do something different. And because I am pretty curious in different domains, I was looking kind of all over the place. So I think that something that can be helpful is to really narrow your focus, narrow your efforts, because if you have, obviously, if your focus is spread too thin, then it's really hard to convert that into an opportunity. And originally I was looking at Shopify, and I made it to a final round with Shopify, just kind of passively looking on the side. Also, Amazon hit me up because I got some certifications during the pandemic because everyone was learning new skills and didn't make it over there to Amazon. So I was trying kind of different things, but I didn't have an exact roadmap of where I wanted to go. And once I figured out that tech sales is, the decision for me where I wanted to pivot my career, I still would say it took me about 6 months. And the most beneficial thing I actually did was closing one door to open the other. I realized that actually if I raised the stakes and left L'Oreal, then that would put me in a mode where I wouldn't have any other option but to apply every day, in bulk, send out LinkedIn connection requests, because getting a job, especially in today's competitive economy and market, is almost like a full-time job. It's very difficult to do. There were jobs that I was applying to, and it was really disheartening, that had like 3,000 applicants. Every job I applied to would have like 300 or 400 applicants within like 2 days. So it was really difficult. And I definitely have some tips there that helped me land the job. Yeah, it was a tough process for sure.
Yeah, let's dig into those tips, and I'll just acknowledge that you really do have to turn pro. And what I mean by that is treat your job hunt like a 9 to 5. And I love that you burn the proverbial bridges, or that's the wrong expression, that you burn the ships, right? You raise your necessity. I'm nerding out, but there's a book called High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard. He's like a top high performance coach that coached actually Usher and Oprah. And he talks about raising necessity as a high performance habit that you were doing. And I don't know if you even read that book. And he talks about himself becoming a top speaker and consultant. And he basically quit his 9 to 5 to do that. So I love your thoughts on treating it like a full-time job and acknowledging that it's a really competitive market. And I think you said 6 months is how long it took you.
Yeah, about 6 months.
I think that is a realistic time frame, right? Some people do get it in 2 weeks, but I feel like 3 months to 6 months is how long it takes. And for me, with like when I got my job at Google, I think it was beyond 6 months. And I think for the most meaningful opportunities, it just takes a longer time. So you alluded to some tips that helped you stand out in this competitive market. Walk us through some of your top tips.
Yeah, definitely. I think first I can just kind of speak to the frustration that a lot of job seekers feel, which is that you're applying, you're getting automatic rejections, maybe like within a couple of days. You're really excited about an opportunity, but it's really hard to hear from anybody. So kind of with that in mind, and realizing that, like if there's 300 applicants, right, you have like a 0.03 chance, essentially. Like it's very minuscule. And even if you do 300 applications, that's a fresh set of 300 people each time that you're competing against. So it's not like if you get to 300 applications that guarantees that you're going to make it through. So you have to do everything that you can to stand out and increase your odds. And to quote you, honestly, you said that all opportunities are tied to people. And I have found that to be more true than anything else. At the end of the day, people hire people. They're not hiring, just a PDF in an obscure cloud, upload file, or like, it's not just like some ATS. So the best thing to do is to get referrals, and to get referrals, you should be, using LinkedIn, reaching out to people through Apollo.io, like get their email, get their phone number, kind of professionally stalk people in a pleasant way.
That's the
And
sales job. You were already doing the SDR role. That's literally the job.
exactly. Yeah. Ask for an informational interview. Like, keep it really low stakes, just a casual conversation, just to understand what they do on a day-to-day basis. And from those nuggets of wisdom that they give you, then you can speak the lingo. You sound proficient. You know how to angle your approach. So everything improves at that point. And that's just from having a conversation. But if the conversation is going well and you ask for a referral, having a referral from an internal employee is going to set you apart from those other 300 applicants. So maybe out of those 300, maybe there's only like 10 that are, referred for that position. So that greatly increases your probability of at least having a shot to speak with the hiring manager and be able to tell your story, which is probably the other really important thing. Interviewing itself is an entire skill set. And I think that people have to devote like a good, maybe like 10 to 20 hours just learning interviewing skills and telling your story succinctly, clearly, to be able to end up landing a role.
Okay. I want to dig a little more into networking, and then we should talk about telling your story and interviewing itself, because that's a whole behemoth. But
Yeah.
there's a club or bar in Austin on West 6th Street called Greenlight Social, and there's a backdoor entrance to a speakeasy. And there's a guy that showed up today, Trent Dressel. Shout out to Trent Dressel. I don't know if he's still on here, but he always talks about getting in through the back door, right? And it reminds me of Greenlight Social, and that's what networking is. It's like getting your foot in the door to start a conversation, jumping, ahead of other candidates to learn from the inside how to differentiate yourself in a competitive market. So what did that look like in action? What were your strategies to connect with these folks to get these networking conversations?
Yeah. So what ended up making all the difference for me, just kind of jumping ahead to the finish line, was personal connection. So what I did was I joined a professional organization. It's called Out in Tech, which is for LGBTQ professionals in the tech industry to just come together to network and advance their careers. So they have a website. There's like 50,000 members globally, which is really cool. They have local events in the city. I went to one of those. It's just like they hosted at a bar. They like you grab a drink, you just mingle with people. You're meeting people that work at Oracle and like at Meta, and you're just chatting. It doesn't have to be like all about work. And through those conversations too, they have those in person, and they also have a dedicated online Slack channel with out of those 50,000 members, like they've got like 35,000 on that Slack channel. And then you can type by keyword. So that's what I did. And I started typing in my target company. I typed in Google, I typed in Meta, I typed in Shopify, and then I saw who came up. And then I reached out to those people, knowing that a lot of them weren't on Slack, and reached out to them on LinkedIn. And that's where I messaged two HubSpotters, one for a casual coffee chat, the other for a referral. One of them referred me, and the other had a coffee chat with me. And then he's the one actually that helped me that made the difference between me getting the job. So
Wow.
really what it came down to for me was I had to get smart and savvy with it. I had been rejected from HubSpot a couple of times prior.
Wow.
I think it was probably the ATS. I think as a salesperson, you have to be resilient just because a organization rejects you. Not necessarily anything to do with you. Could be that they have way too many applicants, and they can't feasibly look at all the great talent that there is out there. And you just have to keep going for it, and eventually knowing or having the mindset that you will break through if you're,
Wow.
a robust candidate.
Another quality you're embodying that is so important to success in sales and life is persistence, pleasant persistence. And that's a term I came up with, and sure other people would say pleasant persistence. But I love that you didn't give up, because I have a friend, David Tigas, that got into AWS after being rejected 17 times. And they were like, "Why are you here?" Like they finally gave him an interview. It's like, "I really want to be here." And he got the job, and he got a really good field sales role actually, and making bank. So that is so
Awesome.
encouraging that you shared. First of all, it didn't happen overnight. It took you 6 months. And second of all, you had applied before and didn't get it the first time, but that doesn't mean you can't get it on the second, third, or fourth try. And I saw that all the time with Google, by the way. It takes, a bunch of tries. So another great insight from what you shared, which I don't think I've heard that in this insight on the channel so far from anyone, is that you joined a group. You leverage an affiliation with an awesome organization or an awesome group with folks that have similar values, and you made it warm and got drinks, and you met up in person. That is so brilliant. And there's like one of my roommates from Georgetown, where I went undergrad, he's a smart guy, and he mentioned this concept of, it's like a psychology term of like group affiliation. I forget the term, but like you basically embodied that. So man, like how did you even find out that group existed? Like, I think that's just a great idea for folks.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like for me, it's going to be, different from somebody else who's like maybe a working mom, or someone that may be like a kind of first generation in their family pursuing tech. So I would say like look for people that you have commonality with. Me being a confident, out and proud gay man living in Los Angeles, I went to Pride, and at Pride they had one of these booths that you walk up to, and they had Out in Tech, and I was like, oh, I had no idea that there was
Yeah.
an organization. And previous to, like, just for context, I think a lot of LGBT people in the past have thought that it actually kind of works against us to self-identify in that way. And one of the nice things about just kind of society progressing is that the things that previously have kind of made you an outsider or excluded you from being like the in crowd are actually the things that can actually work to your advantage. So if you are a first time mom, if you are like a first generation in tech, if you are like, there are so many different professional organizations, and what is it? The riches are in the niches
Yeah.
or niches.
Yeah.
Essentially, try to find something like that where you have commonality with folk, and get in that way.
Yeah. I think that that's an example of a competitive advantage and you bringing your full self to the job hunt. And I just remember Google always said that the companies you want to work for are going to really appreciate eclectic perspectives and backgrounds. So I love that you rocked it. You made it happen, and that's super inspiring. So let's get into interviewing now. It's like you said, it's a whole thing. How much did you prepare for your interviews? Like whether it was like practicing your answers, I don't know if you role played, you obviously networked, but put in perspective how much you prepared for your interview processes.
I over prepared and prepared probably more than like 95% of people probably watching this video. I have decent self-awareness. And so I know the thing for myself is that because I am really curious, because I like to deep dive and stuff, I consume so much information that it's really hard to deliver it in a succinct and clear soundbite. So I think
I'm laughing because I got to stop you. I'm the same way. And I actually, in my Google interview, I had an interviewer have to wrangle me in, but I will say the passion trumped that imperfection, but I totally relate to you. So keep going.
That's awesome. Okay, that's awesome to hear that I'm not like the only nut in
Yeah.
this area,
Yeah.
because I think that that is a huge skill set for someone. If you're really meticulous, if you're really curious, if you love to learn, you may just have a hard time being able to communicate your passion in a succinct and clear soundbite because you want to fit all that enthusiasm in. But honestly, it works against us. So I hired a career coach, and I found a career coach, and I told them that, like, I knew that this is the area of opportunity for me. I can be rambly, I can be verbose. I want to be straight to the point. I want to be concise, and I want to give the interviewers what they're looking for, and then let them know that if they want me to elaborate on anything, I'd be happy to double click into it. But
Beautiful.
essentially, you want to be giving like 60-second answers, 90-second answers when you're responding to questions, and then offering to dive deeper into anything.
Clearly it worked out because you're giving us some great sound bites here, very succinct and well delivered. So it's funny because this is an interview. You're embodying it. So
Yeah.
how did you? Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, how did you think about telling your narrative? How did you think about translating your past experience, albeit pretty relevant because you have a sales background, to show the interviewers, the hiring managers, what was in it for them and what you're going to bring to the table? Like, how did you think about that?
Yeah, well, I think some of the direction that I can give here is don't reinvent the wheel. There are so many marketing professionals, there are tech professionals like Chris who are putting out great, valuable content on their YouTube every single day. And that advice is really what I'd use as a framework. And to help make it more concise as well, you can go to just type into Google, like YouTube or like AI YouTube summary. And so you can type in a URL of a YouTube video from a recruiter telling you the top tips, interviewing tips. Then you can put that into a YouTube, kind of like YouTube to transcript website. So then you have the full transcript, and then copy that into ChatGPT and just say, summarize this, just give me the top bullets. And then from there, you can like build out your interview strategy so that everything is really succinct, everything's really clear. And now with ChatGPT, they even rolled out with their like new paid model. I'm sure, have you played around with this where you can talk to it?
I haven't spoken to it yet, and I love that you're bringing innovation to the podcast. Because I still need to dig more into using ChatGPT. Like that's so smart that you're using it as you use it as your sidekick in the interview process, and you can do that in a sales role too. But I haven't spoken to ChatGPT. What's been your experience?
My experience has been really great. In fact, I have it right here. So if there's anything where I'm like, I need some additional like insight here, we can always consult it for like a 10-second soundbite just to show people what it's like.
I
But
love that.
it's been very helpful for
Yeah.
me. I think that it'll level people up for sure.
Yeah, and what did you focus on when you told your story? Like, were there qualities that we talked about curiosity. I could tell you have work ethic. I'm just curious, like, how did you high level, like, if I asked you, tell me about your background or your resume, like, how might you take a stab at it?
Yeah, so it was just looking up it was like a Google recruiter, like saying on YouTube, this is how to answer that common question. Tell me about yourself. And then it was a like 3-part formula, which was basically like, what did you do in the past? What are you doing now? What do you hope to accomplish in the future? Something that had a very clear structure, and then just adding in my info into that. So that's what I brought to the interview.
Beautiful. What an asset. Stories are assets. And I think we need to collect a quiver of stories, not just about our background, but of course, to answer behavioral questions. Like, tell me about a time you received a piece of feedback and implemented it, or set a stretch goal and push yourself to achieve it. How did you achieve it? I've heard, in working with different folks, these are a couple of the many behavioral questions you might be asked. I'm curious, in your process, were there particular, like, what were a few behavioral questions that you were asked that like stood out to you?
Oh, that's a good question.
If you remember.
I know that a lot of the ones that they asked me about, it's gonna marinate and come back, but I do have a
Yeah.
thought for like those behavioral questions. Like a
Yes.
lot of people talk about the STAR method. Some people talk about like a more concise version, which is PAR, which is problem, action, result.
Ooh, I
And
like
then
that.
I got this. Yeah, and there's a Amazon recruiter who says PAR plus I. So not only problem, action, result, and then you tack on um, improvement. So what you learned, what you would have done differently. Um, so as long as you're adding that piece, showing that you can basically continuously improve or iterate, then that's you're basically hired, because not necessarily always of your current skill sets, but if you're interviewing with an innovative company, they're hiring you based on future potential. So if your
Exactly.
stories show that, yeah, that you are improvement oriented, then you're going to align with that goal of, being kind of aligning with their, future company mission.
I love that. And that's the beauty of the SDR role, and it also going for a role at a top company is they hire for what you're capable of becoming. Clearly, they saw a shining star in you, and yeah, I know it's helpful to think about PAR. I like that because star can, it's like, oh, that's so many letters. Let's simplify it a little bit. But what does that stand for? One more time, it's problem, action,
Problem,
result.
yeah, problem, action, result. Star, it's easy to get lost in the sauce. So that was kind of a little bit helpful for me in like trying to put my stories together.
Yeah, definitely. So what?
And and
Yeah, go ahead.
I know that I know I dodged your question
Come on.
about like behavioral questions, but I'm still marinating on it,
Okay,
just so
yeah,
you
and that's
know.
the thing, it's like you're juggling a whole new role, like, you're about to start Monday, like, going live, and, not to mention a social life outside of this, and so totally get it. What were the steps in the interview process with HubSpot, you know, like I think of like recruiter screening call, behavioral or like hiring manager interviewer, et cetera. What was the overall process?
So there was a first round interview. There was a second round. I think there was like 3 or 4 rounds
Yeah.
ultimately of interviews that I did in addition to the phone screen. So it was a pretty lengthy process, to be honest.
Did you have to do a cold call role play? I know that's very common, but not every, I actually didn't have to do that at Oracle, you know, but they did ask me questions, questions, situations combined about like, oh, you've got a leads list and how it like greenfield and install, how would you prioritize it? Right. But did you have to do a cold call role play?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I did a cold call role play, and I may have even had to like draft
Okay.
a email to a prospect. So I think I did both of those like work
Yeah,
samples.
it's really common to have a sales exercise, you know, like writing a hypothetical email or doing a hypothetical cold call. Um, as you get ready to get in the action and start to make cold calls, like how are you planning to approach that? Have you thought through, like, have you created like a framework or a script?
Yeah, that's one of the great things is there's so much training and preparation. So the way that HubSpot does it is they kind of coach us a little bit on the psychology of how you can approach things. So they may say, you know, open the call, like a recommendation could be you open the call like, hey, this is Chris calling from Google. Um, or like, hey, this is Chris calling from Google. Am I catching you at the worst possible time? And usually someone will say
Yeah.
no, or like, hey, is this Jim with so and so? Hey, Jim, we've never spoken before. This is Chris calling from Google. Saying something like that lowers the zone of resistance. And
Yes.
then you can ask, like, hey, do you have a quick minute for me to tell you why I'm calling? And first, there's also some intrigue, like, okay, I've never spoken to you before. Like, what is this even about? So, like, usually no one's going to say, no, I don't have a minute for you to tell me why I'm calling. And then you can layer in, like, well, I'm specifically reaching out to you because I see you do like X, Y, and Z at such and such company. And then you could talk about persona challenges. Like, if you're like most marketers, we see that they're trying to accomplish X and encountering Y. Does that sound familiar? I've got
Oh, I
some ideas.
like that.
That's one of the ones I think that I heard from. You had a great guest on your
Was it,
YouTube.
oh, Josh
So I
Braun?
stole.
Josh Braun?
It was it was a female. She has a lot of
Was it
she
Ren Hawthorne? Sally Doobie. Sally
Sally
Doobie.
yeah, Sally
She's
Dude.
good. Oh man, she was great. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh,
that
cool.
that also I landed a opportunity as well at another tech sales company on RepView, using her recommendations as well. So using that format, like, hey, if you're like most directors of marketing that I talk to, or if you're like most CMOs or et cetera, you're probably seeing this. Does that sound familiar? So those
It's
tips
so
were
good.
gold.
It's just smooth, and she had a voicemail where she's like, you know, like you described, what we're seeing talking to other CMOs and making this up is that they're dealing with these challenges, and we help them, blah blah blah, like solve those challenges. Just really dumbing it down. I'm Sally Doobie. It's like the way she ended it. She like held her name to the end of the voicemail, and it just sounded so smooth. And feel free to call me back at blah 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 blah. So, but I love your approach to cold calls. And I think at the beginning, you're right. It's all about diffusing the zone of resistance. These sales defenses just go up in the mind of a prospect. And it's certainly in my mind when someone cold calls me. And it's like, how can you show that, you know, you're a human being and you're like aware that you're interrupting their day? And I like that you said more or less, did I catch you at a bad time? You didn't say those exact words, but people want to say the opposite. So it'll be like, no, you didn't. You know, so that's just like a small little thing that is effective. And I like that you're introducing a problem. I did have Josh Braun in it as well. And he's got like 200,000 followers on LinkedIn. And if you don't follow him, he's a really good resource. Like I'm learning from him all the time. And he says like, what do customers find interesting? Big, expensive problems. So that's exactly what you're doing. You're leading with a problem and they're probably going to like be dealing with that. And it opens up a conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's our method for when it's like truly cold. But the benefit of working at a globally recognized tech firm is that we have a lot of inbound interest. We have a lot of people that are passively kind of interacting with our content. So we have all these different intent signals, whether it's our website or whether it's from competitors or platforms like G2, a software review site, who may say like, hey, X company is looking at HubSpot, and if I see that alert, I'm going to reach right out. And I don't even have to talk about their challenges. I can just say, hey, looks like, someone at X company was poking around the website, just out of curiosity, what may have sparked the interest? And then you can get into a conversation that's a lot warmer. So we kind of have both to play around with.
And that is a great point to hit on. So you're dealing with a combination then of hunting and generating your own leads and surfacing inbound leads. Is that correct? That's what you're going to be doing in the job?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like demo requests, like that high intent, but we may have info from like Zoom info, for instance, or from G2 that they're checking out Salesforce, like a competitor. And we have some great case studies there, or we know about a lot of the problems expressed by, some of the competitors that we can talk to, especially in Q4 around renewal. So it makes it a lot easier to have contextualized conversations when you have good data that you can kind of tell a story around.
That's the power too of working at a large global brand is everyone knows HubSpot. People respect that brand. So it definitely helps. It makes your job a little easier, even though it just outbound is always going to be a challenge. And so I noticed that at Oracle too. And sometimes I would just flex that Oracle has such breadth of solutions. So I'd tell an executive, honestly, we don't know what we don't know in terms of how we can work together. So would it make sense to, there's such breadth to what we do. Would it make sense to at least have one conversation? And if there's not a fit to work somewhere, you could tell me to take a hike, or so, I don't know, like something dumb like that. And with HubSpot, it's like, you're going to want to stay in touch. But do you have you been trained up on how you'll handle when they're on Salesforce or using I'm trying to think of other CRMs. It's really Salesforce and HubSpot. But what did they tell you about approaching that situation?
So for that, I know that we do have essentially internal documents, battle cards for that. It also too depends. We're in the business of helping businesses grow better. So we're also very confident where we excel in that. And I think that the nice thing about working for a compassionate company too is that's really well known is that we're not necessarily hurting for the business. So if, it has to make sense, and that's all rooted in discovery, which I'm looking forward to the point where I am able to do that. But in my role currently, it's more about just getting those quality conversations booked. And then the account executives get to have those discovery conversations. So not yet at that point, but looking to get there.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome when you get there and on your way to being a founder of your own company. So what are the KPIs in the role? How are you measured?
Yeah, so what we're measured against is meetings delivered at the end of the day. So not only are you getting somebody booked for a quality conversation, and that needs to be somebody who is quality and there's defined metrics, but basically, we want to be talking to the C-suite, someone that has that decision-making capability. So we're not wasting their time. They're not wasting our time. We want to be talking to somebody where we can solve their challenges and they have awareness or acumen about kind of what's going on in their business. Sorry, remind me the question.
No, that would shoot, I'm forgetting the question. Okay, the KPIs. Yes. Oh my gosh. Hey, it's a Friday. JD, I appreciate you showing up on a Friday and everyone's right now. So we got a live audience here. And you're crushing it. So
Well,
KPIs, right? And so you're describing like these need to be qualified meetings. I'm curious, is pipeline sourced from your meetings also obviously also a big metric? Like, or do you have any quota for like closed revenue, even though you're not closing the deals? Like, it's kind of cool to get a look into the hood on how you're measured for
yeah,
your
definitely.
bonus too.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. Getting back on track, guys. So the first KPI is, of course, the meetings delivered, and that differs between the segment you're in, whether that's SMB, mid-market, or enterprise. And then it's also MRR, so monthly reoccurring revenue for those who aren't familiar with the term. So we're measured against meetings booked and then MRR delivered. And those are the two criteria that we need to be able to advance to the next level. We have to hit certain thresholds. And then what helps you get there on a day-to-day basis is number of calls made, number of emails sent, number of like quality conversations connects had. So there's these volume activities that'll distill typically down into the MRR and the meetings delivered.
Very well put. Okay. Because there's a term called lead indicators. I'm getting this from a book, The 12-Week Year. It's a cool book that's like about, most people think in annualized terms, but what if you could compress to 3 months, which is like a quarter, to achieve a lot more? And they talk about measuring your performance with lead indicators, which are the activities you're describing, like calls and outbound touches that are going to lead to success and the outcome. And the lag indicators are looking reality in the face of like how success, like the actual outcomes you're driving towards. Like you mentioned actual meetings or MRR delivered. So it's helpful to understand what are the lead indicators of success and the lag indicators of how you're actually measured and how you get paid for your bonus. And so I'm curious though, to double click on the MRR piece. Are you actually getting measured on closed revenue, or is it pipeline, like the MRR pipeline that could close?
No, it's actually on the revenue that's closed, which understandably we don't have, too much decision making or influence in that area. That's up to the growth specialists who we partner with. So the way that our success is measured is it's weighted on the things that are within my control. About like 70% of my kind of results that I measured against are all within my control. But that other 30%
Cool.
is the relationship or collaboration between me and my account executive, and making sure that those meetings that I'm booking for them, they're warm meetings. So there's a pretty good chance, that they're going to close, and that there's that fiscal opportunity there with the MRR. So that's kind of how they do it. 70-30.
Okay. Super helpful. When you say 70-30, are you talking about, okay, the split between like how you get to your bonus, right? Like 70% is activity based and 30 is like the actual outcome of like, or could you double click into that, the 70-30 split?
Yeah, actually, that is a great question. Let me see what I was trying to say here. My understanding is that
Because here's a quick thing, JD, and here I am being question boy, as I described, and we're both curious people. And so, of course, we're getting in the weeds. But I also know that like you could have a 70% base salary and your bonus is 30%. But I was wondering if that's what you're referring to, or if you're talking about within your metrics. And I don't want to overcomplicate it. Like it's 70% activity versus 30% like the revenue.
yeah, that's essentially what I intended to say, is like
Okay.
70%, I guess, of our metrics is like weighted against the meetings, and then 30%
Got it.
is weighted against the MRR, which is like not fully within our control, but we have a good bit of influence over.
Yeah, cool. And when I was at Google Cloud and I was account executive, there were different buckets and like percentage weights for the different metrics, like closing a commit, which is a multi-year contract, versus consumption of monthly spend. So it's interesting, like as sellers, like we can make some good money, especially as you move up into AE and beyond. And a lot of the top sellers really dig into the compensation plan and the metrics, and it's part of our job to understand the outcomes and how they're produced. So thanks for going in the weeds, and I know you're going to crush
Yeah.
it.
And well, to that point too. Thank you for asking me, because that, highlights that I don't fully understand that component. So I'm definitely going to go back to that. Any good salesperson too goes through their commission plan with a fine tooth comb. I
Yes.
haven't had the opportunity to go through like all 90 something pages yet, but
that's a lot.
a docket for me for sure. And
Yeah.
also go through with a manager that can synthesize it for you.
Yeah, and one day you'll be an enterprise AE with a crazy OTE, and you'll be digging in like, how do I make $1 million? I just had a guy on Ian Cognac. I don't know if you saw, but he made 7 figures, like multiple years, like 3 years.
Wow.
And we talked about that, and that's the path you're on. And being at a company like HubSpot, like a top enterprise brand, you move into enterprise AE role, like you have a path, my friend. So if you're selling, obviously you're selling like a $50 a month subscription to like small manufacturers, mom and pop shops, you can't make that type of money. But anyway, so are you in the SMB segment or mid-market? Are you an enterprise? Like, where are you at within HubSpot right now?
Yeah, so I'm a BDR on the corp side. So
Cool.
that's going to be our enterprise level clients.
Ooh, okay. You're in a good path, in the right segment. So, okay, how are you networking to set yourself up for success within your company? And I guess I'm assuming you're gonna like building your AE relationships is gonna be really important. So maybe a step back. My first question is, how many AEs are you aligning to? And the second question we could hit after is like, how are you building strong relationships?
Yeah, so I just got assigned my AEs today. Haven't gotten a meeting yet
Okay.
because everything's so new. But I think ultimately I'll be supporting 4 AEs right now. Starting off, I'll be supporting 2 AEs. But the great thing is that they're enterprise level AEs. So I get to, in a really transparent organization, we also have Gong. So like outside of my 9 to 5 work hours, I get to listen to anybody's Gong calls in the company. So it makes sense. If you're a hungry, ambitious salesperson, you're going to look at the leaderboard, see who are the people that have what you want. If you want to be an enterprise, listen to the top enterprise level rep, listen to their Gong calls, figure out, look at the transcript, see what they're doing, integrate like the top performing BDR, their talk track into your talk track, like, test things out to see if it's authentic to you. So that's kind of some of the ways that I'm thinking about approaching that kind of career growth and learning from others, having quality conversations like, 15-minute Slack meetings and stuff. But also too, I think that there's something to be said about not kind of like pepper spraying like everybody's inbox with messages
Smart.
and requests for 15-minute meetings. Like actually just finding a couple people who I really want to learn from and seeing, if that's a mutual want, if they want to kind of mentor somebody, and then just focusing on a few good people. Because ultimately, like if you have too many inputs, it's going to be hard to make sense of it. So just kind of staying a little bit lean.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great nugget, and that I would have loved to have had a former version of myself know. And even going back to Google, I peppered everyone, and I think I ended up turning out fine, but I think I overdid it, and I had so many different things. So that is very wise, JD. Find a few people, top performers, and get to know them and connect with them, and don't spread yourself too thin. And you hit on something good, which is ultimately you need to make it authentic to yourself. Like you're JD and you have your own personality and special sauce. And so you can incorporate their style to fit your own. So I'm curious, are there other things that you're going to be doing to set yourself up to succeed in addition to learning from some of the top performers and building those relationships?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm selling a marketing product. So I think just having that intellectual curiosity about your domain, about who you're selling to, what's top of mind for them, and then kind of doing it, just like how we talked about doing the BDR role before you get into the BDR,
Yes.
like during the interview process. So my same kind of thought process there is like, I'd love to be a content farm on LinkedIn
Mm.
for drafting all my posts. I'd love to be able to embrace video content. I think someone who I absolutely look up to for sure is you. You're crushing it with the content, putting out valuable interviews, just posting regularly.
Thank you.
There's an acronym like always be selling, but I think we've heard that that's transition to always be helping. And so like the cool thing is that you've created such a multiplier effect for so many people who are watching your YouTube videos, looking at your LinkedIn posts and extracting value from it. So I'd love to be able to do the same thing, speaking to the people that I'm essentially selling to. So that would be like marketing managers, directors of marketing, people like that. And kind of testing out our tools and getting the most use out of them so that I'm actually doing the thing that I'm essentially, selling so that there's kind of continuity there.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words and acknowledgement, and just talking with you. For this is our first time talking, face to face. Even though we messaged on LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure you have the it factor. And we've got comments from LinkedIn user. I'm sorry, I can't see your name. Who said, "I'm loving this conversation." Fire emoji. Thank you for the value you are bringing to my job search as someone who is changing careers from social work to SaaS. That's the type of value you have to bring to the table. So keep sharing your story. I would say to help other people go down the path that you're going down, and of course to connect with your audience, your potential customers. But you're destined for big things, and just I would say like just do, and as you commented on, just be consistent. And I would I think of like posting content as art, and I'm reading a book by Seth Godin called The Practice, and it talks about the ritual of just creating and floating out art and content. And art is putting something out there that could benefit others and help them improve with no expectation of the outcome or not knowing where it will go. And so as you embark on this journey, you don't know where it will lead, but I feel pretty confident it's going to lead to a very good place. So, yeah.
Thanks. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome from you. That's really energizing. And I'm totally going to sync with you after this live to get those recs as well.
100%. And so I see that we've got 3 minutes left, and I've got so many questions for you. We're both curious people, but we can tie a bow in this conversation. It's clearly been so helpful to the audience, and thank you to the folks who've shown up. And thank you to the people who will see this as it floats out in the YouTube sea. That's the beauty of YouTube. More folks will see it in the future. I noticed you have like you're a well-rounded person. You're getting into Toastmasters now. You're in different organizations, and I'm curious, how are you investing in yourself holistically as a person beyond just your 9 to 5?
Yeah, I think one of the cool things, which is just like a nerdy obsession of mine, is like I had the realization or epiphany within the last few years that as a adult, you get to almost be, I kind of think of it as wearing like, it's really nerdy, but like a Boy Scout like sash with all these like different badges. But the badges are like badass skill sets that you get to accumulate
Yeah.
throughout your life. So like you can join an improv troupe if you want. You can learn how to dance. You may be a terrible dancer, but you can give it a go. When it comes to dating, like there's so many different resources out there for dating. So as someone who likes to stay curious in so many different domains, I think that if you're not growing, you're dying, and that's something that gives me endless energy. So I just love kind of leveling up in different areas of life, putting myself in uncomfortable positions. Like I set a goal for myself. I can talk somebody's ear off for hours being myself, but something that makes me ridiculously uncomfortable is acting. So
Oh,
a
wow.
lot of people like public fear of speaking. I love speaking. I know how to be me, but being somebody else mortifies me and makes me like
Wow.
die inside. So I know like, hey, that's something that I need to confront. There's like something to dig into. So things like that get me excited. And I
Wow.
think as salespeople, like we're given goals professionally every month, every quarter, every year that we have to hit. So like, why not apply that same mentality in your personal life so that you also have personal goals like monthly, quarterly, you know, yearly. So if you're producing for work, you might as well also produce for yourself in your own life so that you can show up and like have a little bit of work-life harmony, and the two like help each other out a little bit.
I love how you described it as work-life harmony. And I think the good stuff in life is when we venture out of our comfort zone. And I love that you see the discomfort of acting as an opportunity, and you're going to face it and you're going to just expand who you are. I do think it's funny though, that you think that like you're so good at being yourself, and it's clear today in this interview, and that it scares you to act, because some people are most people are good at acting. Like I knew someone at Oracle and Toastmasters that the way they spoke was like performative, but like we challenged that person to really show who they were. And so that's interesting. It's like, seems almost the other way around for you, which is it. I'd rather be like comfortable being authentic if I, but yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Cool.
So, LinkedIn user again, I'm sorry that, feel free to throw your name in the chat, but want to acknowledge, they said love the badge analogy. I loved it as well. Very cool. Cheers to us collecting more badges and skill sets. And I had a guest, Chris Orlob, who said the gap between us and our dreams is really not time, it's skills. So excited to see you continue to develop your skills at HubSpot and beyond. Any final challenge to the audience, either a challenge or words of encouragement as we wrap up the conversation?
Yeah, for sure. I think that tech is really the place to be from a quality of life perspective. As somebody who wants to travel the world, my dream has always been to be a digital nomad and get to see a lot of the beautiful places around the world. And I think that kind of with the innovations of the 21st century, you shouldn't have to be tied necessarily to like one specific location. And so I think that just being at HubSpot for a month, I've seen how compassionate they are as an employer. Their commitment to diversity, inclusion, and equity, making a space that everyone can show up, do their best work, but also know at the end of the day, it's just work. And they want it to be a positive environment, but they also encourage you to have a life outside it and allow for you to like put time in your calendar when you need to take care of something and you don't have to ask for permission. So I think that in general, that tech is a wonderful place to be for a lot of people who are in other industries that are trying to break in. And I think that following your channel, Chris, has given me a ton of value and insights. And also you connected me with somebody at HubSpot who is also an invaluable connection there. Oh, cool. So I think to the audience, keep following, listening, reading Chris's content, and eventually, reach out to people. It really is, all opportunities are tied to people, but if you keep going at it, eventually you'll break through. I was just where you were at, looking to change my career, and it took me a long time, but I'm finally on the other side, and it was worth all the, all the resilience, all the nights that I could have gone out with my friends and decided to like stay home and work on interviews and like quote unquote boring stuff. But now it's kind of changed the trajectory of the rest of my life. And now I'll get to like work remotely from if I want to, or, somewhere cool like that, or, get to spend more time with my loved ones. So it's definitely worth it.
JD, you gave me. No, I mean, that was awesome. That's a great soundbite. I feel like I should turn that into a mini clip and post afterwards, but you gave me chills. I love to see you, a rising star, giving your gift, singing your song. I know a bunch of cheesy metaphors, but you're doing the thing. Congratulations on your success, and congratulations on the success to come, because I know it's coming. And by the way, shout out to Audrey Balsor. If I'm saying it right, that is who a LinkedIn user is. Audrey, thank you for being a part of this conversation. Thank you to the other folks who stuck with us to the end that are still live with us. I appreciate, JD, you told folks to follow me, but I say, folks, follow JD Wagnon. Right. I know you're going to be putting out some great content, and don't be afraid to reach out to him to connect and learn from his path. JD's just a great guy. I could, tell even in the few conversations we've had. And I mean, I hope that's okay, JD. Is that okay if folks reach out to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to pay it forward.
Yeah.
For sure.
So JD, so excited to continue to cheer you on, and guys, cheering the rest of you on to your success in tech sales and in life. Happy selling and happy living. And we'll see you in the next one. See you guys.